coffee? Okay. Before we get started, please join me in invoking the Buddha's name 3 times. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Your Venerable Teacher, dear Sangha, good afternoon. I feel like I haven't been up here for a while. Anyway, if you've been following along with my Dharma talks, we've been speaking on the Dhammapada, which everyone should be fairly familiar with. Most everyone have been here, but the Dhammapada is one of the oldest and most important Buddhist texts, and so we've been covering that for quite some time. We still have a lot to go, but we are on chapter 2, verse 24 today. So we will cover that. And as usual, let's go over the verse, go over the story behind the verse, and of course the commentary. So the verse goes, if an earnest person is energetic, mindful, pure in conduct, if he acts with consideration, self-restrained, lives according to the Dharma, then his glory will increase. This verse was given to King Bhimamsara and Rashaga in India back in the Buddhist time. The story is about a wealthy couple. The husband, the father, was the state banker, head banker, treasurer, whatever you call it. And they only had one son. And it was during a time where there was a big plague in the city, and so people were just kind of dying off, kind of like COVID, right? Everything happens again. But the parents insisted that the son would travel out, go to a different city, just get away from the plague, right? So that he wouldn't get infected, harmed, and died. But on his way out, the father told him of a secret spot where the family had hid treasure, just so he would know to have in the future. So the boy left, and many years later, he came back to the city, and no one really recognized him because he had grown older, he had a beard, no one really knew who he was because half the population died, and so he kind of just went anew. And he didn't want to go and grab and get that, someone please close the door, get that treasure, because he didn't want people to think, oh, who's this random person that just came into town with all this money, all this treasure, all this gold. He probably got it in unwholesome ways, or he's a thief, or whatever it may be, right? And get prosecuted by the king. And so instead, he became kind of like a city manager of some sort. He would go around the town, make sure everyone's doing what they need to do, things were ordered, things were supplied, et cetera, et cetera. He kind of worked through this for quite some time. And then one day, as he was going out around town and speaking to all the other shopkeepers and the merchants and whatnot, the king heard his voice, and the king at the time, King Bhimamsara, he was a Srotapatana, so he was a stream enterer. He attained the first stage of enlightenment. And so when he heard the voice of this man, he kind of whispered that this person had a strong voice, a strong presence. And he thought that this person was someone very important, someone very highly skilled or rich or whatever. And so he sent the attendants, he sent 2 attendants to go see who this man was. And the attendant went down and just saw that he was just a regular man. He was here to work. He's city manager. He's just chilling. He just has a cool voice, apparently. And so the attendants went back to the king and kind of told him that. But then the king repeated that same sentence 2 more times after that, in different days. And so, again, he sent the attendants to go and investigate and see who this man was. Who's this man with this majestic voice that just resonates across town? But again, the attendants went back to the king and said, no, it's just a city manager. He's just a regular guy, cool guy. So, in order to kind of figure out or dig deeper into who this person was, because even when the attendants questioned him, he was just like, I'm just a city manager. I'm no one special. But then the king ordered that a festival would be hosted in the city and that every household had to contribute toward this festival, toward this kind of celebration of some sort. And so if people who didn't cooperate or didn't participate would get punished or something like that. I don't remember the story exactly. But the man at the time, he didn't have enough of his own money that he's been working with to participate or to donate toward this cause. And so he went back to where his parents hid that treasure and got a few pieces of gold coins. Right? These are like fancy, new, shiny gold coins. And so the two attendants, when they were going around to collect this money, and the man gave them these shiny new gold coins, the attendant switched them out with their own coins and kept those shiny new coins, right? And so then the attendant went to the king and kind of said, this is what they gave me, right? All the other gold from the city looks like dirt, and it's dirty and it's old, it's rusty. These are new shiny gold coins, so he must have stolen it or something. And so the king ordered him to ordered the guards to go bring this man to the court. And he was questioning, and the king questioned the man, and the man knew that this is the king, he probably shouldn't lie, right? And so the man explained to him that he was the son of the previous banker, the city banker, the treasurer, that he had been gone for several years because the parents made him leave to avoid the plague, and he came back into town several years later, no one recognized him, so he kind of just started over again. And so the king was kind of like surprised, like, oh, this totally makes sense. But because the king knew of his voice, right, this majestic voice that he had, he knew that this person was authentic. He knew that this person was a good person, someone that's not kind of shady or whatever. And so the king appointed him as the head treasurer, like his father, right? And so that happened. And then later on, the king took the banker to go see the Buddha. And went to the Buddha and explained to the Buddha that this man who is one of the wealthiest men in the city hid that wealth from others and worked this menial job of going around town, helping people work, and kind of just being kind of a laborer person, right? He never flaunted his riches. He never flaunted he had all this gold. He didn't care about any of that. And so the Buddha then, this is when the Buddha recited that verse. And I will repeat it again. If an earnest person is energetic, mindful, pure in conduct, if he acts with consideration, self-restrained, lives according to the Dharma, and his glory will increase. And the story here is kind of mundane. It's not a very fascinating story like some of the other stories from the Dhammapada verses. But in this small verse, the Buddha is basically giving us a list of characteristics, right? Energetic, mindful, pure in conduct, self-restrained, lives according with the Dharma. And if he follows these steps, then his glory will increase. And so when we're going through this verse, some of these verses take a lot of study and contemplation to kind of really dig deep and figure out what the verse is about. But this verse is one of my favorites because it's pretty straightforward. It's a literal list, right? So this list is telling you what we need to do in life. The list is telling us, or the Buddha is telling us, that you cannot passively just do things in life and expect something to happen out of nothing, out of nowhere. You can't just sit around in life expecting to the world to beckon to your needs. You can't just hang around and hope for equality in the world, for peace in the world. I hope nothing happens. I'm going to pray for you. That's great. Your prayer does nothing for me. I wish you best of luck. Your wishes mean nothing to me. But the point he's trying to make here is you cannot just superficially want or wish for things. If you're hungry, what do? Do you think about food, or do you actually go and get food? You go get food, right? If you're thirsty, do you think about drinking water? Oh, I wish I had water. No, you go and you get a glass of water. You want to do good in school? You study, you practice, you do what you need to do. You get good grades, you graduate. You had to do something. If you just passively sat in class, fell asleep, played on your phone, not paid attention, got bad grades, you're not going to graduate. Is that the fault of the teacher, of the school, or yours? So it's the same thing in our spiritual practice. People come and go to the temple all the time. People come and go to churches all the time, right? People are seeking for refuge in things, in spirituality, which is great, right? That's what religion is for, it's a place of refuge. But at the same time, you can't think that just because I come to church or go to temple or go to the mosque, that my life is just automatically going to be better. One of the bigger misconceptions of Buddhism is that Buddhism is a happiness pill. Now, if you study Buddhism or practice Buddhism or do meditation or come to a temple and chant and read and socialize or whatever, that you're just going to automatically become a happier person. So Buddhism and life in general is not a happiness pill. So what this verse is telling us, and what the Buddha has always reiterated, is that if you want peace, you have to create peace. If you want happiness, you have to create happiness. It's not just by wishful thinking, but it's by active doing, right? Because the path of rebirth, the constant cycle of samsara, is done if we have good intentions, right? If you have a good intention in life, then you avoid making misdeeds, you avoid doing unwholesome deeds and actions, and you may be reborn as a better person. But if you want the path to nirvana, then that needs to be paved by sustained effort and action and resolve. Some of my students are in the first row. Take the 3 refuge and 5 precepts. If you take the 3 refuge and 5 precepts, these are your actions. If you take the 5 precepts and just go about your life forgetting about them, how do you expect the precepts to work for you? Precepts are what? Not to kill, not to steal, not to lie, not to conduct sexual misconduct, not to ingest intoxicants. These are not rules or laws. These are simple guidelines. They're common sense. To be happy, to be at peace, to have a fulfilled life, don't kill. If you take a life, what happens? You go to jail. Right? If you go to jail and you survey the people there, every single inmate has broken 1 or more of the 5 precepts. Right? Otherwise, why aren't they in jail? For laughs and giggles? No. Someone murdered someone. Someone was human trafficking, drug smuggling, torture, I don't know, fraud, bribery, money laundering. All these are breaking the precepts. So the precepts aren't to say, hey, you need to do this. The precepts are, hey, if you want to be happy, if you want to create peace in yourself and around you, because peace in the world, we expect peace to magically happen. If all the wars were to stop and people stop being buttheads all the time, then the world will automatically be peaceful. No, it's not. Unfortunately. There's always going to be chaos, because chaos is not created by others. Chaos is created by yourself, by us. Chaos is done because we amplify our own suffering into the world instead of dealing with that suffering. And so we're able to correctly deal with that suffering, right, by being energetic, by being mindful, and pure in conduct. What does pure in conduct mean? Pure in conduct in this case is referring to the 5 precepts. And so, if we're able to follow these steps, right, in this list, then we have the capacity to actively resolve our suffering, to actively be able to work towards our own happiness, toward alleviating that suffering in ourselves and others. One of the common things you'll see in Buddhist practice is that, well, it depends. If you have been reading or practicing or trying to learn about Buddhism for at least a while, then you know that Buddhism is very comprehensive. There is so much information. There's so many sutras, there's so many discourses, there's so many teachings, right? There's thousands. The Dhammapada is equivalent. If Buddhism had a Bible, the Dhammapada would be the equivalent, for the most part, in my personal opinion. Because it encompasses, the Dhammapada is not one huge teaching, like the discourses of the sutras, right? The Dhammapada is a mixture of hundreds of different sutras that are laid out in different chapters for its specific teachings, and then each verse is taken from multiple hundreds of sutras. I had a point I forgot. Clearly not my fault. But the biggest takeaway from this, from what I want to give on this, is that if you're serious in your spiritual practice, your spiritual endeavors, then you need to go at it wholeheartedly. What we would often see is that people come and they get really excited about the practice, about meditation, right? They're eager, they're in this honeymoon phase, and after a while it kind of just dissolves into nothing. Right? They forget about the practice. They forget about what initially drew them to whatever spiritual path they were on in the first place. And then it just kind of dissipates. Right? In most world religions, theistic religions, is that the deity or God or someone is your savior. Right? This is your only means of escaping hell, is by this belief, this blind belief. Which, if that works for you, that's great. But in Buddhism, that doesn't work. Buddhism has no blind faith. There is faith in Buddhism, right? We read on faith. But faith here does not mean faith in the Buddha, or the Bodhisattvas, or the saints, or the teachers, right? None of these externalities are important. Faith in Buddhism is faith in yourself. It's the self-confidence that you need to walk this journey, this difficult path, in order to find that peace that you came here to find in the first place. Being a Buddhist is actually very difficult. It's not easy, right? There's a lot of times I would see people who have been here for years, but they don't know anything. Not that they're dumb or they're stupid. They just assume that this routine of coming to the temple and meditating and chanting will make them happy. That by chanting and meditating, your suffering will be magically erased. It doesn't. Why? Because they're not doing anything besides words. Words and feelings are not enlightenment. Right? Even with monks and nuns. I've met monks and nuns who have been monks and nuns for 30, 40, 50 years, but they're just kind of like hanging around waiting to die. They've lost faith in their own practice. And even practitioners lose faith in their own practice, but they just do it because it's habit. Right? People who go to church once a year for Christmas or whatever, they go out of habit, not because they want to go, or that they believe in what they're doing or going or saying. No, because it's habit. It's cultural, right? Stupid, but whatever. So the point is that if you're going to be here, or if you're going to truly pursue something like a spiritual path, then you need to put in the effort in order to do that. If you do not study and practice, you have no purpose to attempt to have a spiritual life. Life is obviously difficult, generally speaking, right? We may think that we are free and independent, but we are unfortunately not. You may be free and independent in the sense that you have a job, you're grown up, you're an adult, you have your own house, your car, and whatever. But even those things do not bring you independence, because every one of those things relies on other externalities. Your job relies on the company being there. It relies on customers. It relies on the economy and money, right? Your job relies on the mechanics, relies on the parts and the manufacturer and the factory workers. Your food relies on farmers, agriculturalist people, right? And so you may think you're independent, but everything you do in life depends on other things. And so nirvana is the same thing. Enlightenment is the same thing. You can't just say, oh yeah, I'm a Buddhist, I'm a Christian, I'm Catholic, I'm Jewish, I just go to hang out. This is how life is. And expect to be born in heaven or whatever you believe in. No. Hard pass. So when in doubt, remind yourself, why are you here? As a monk life is not easy at all. When I became a monk, I thought I would have so much time to study. I have less time to study now than when I was not a monk. And so every once in a while, not very often, thankfully, but every once in a while I'm like, is this for me? Right? There's that small spark of doubt. But then I have to remind myself, why am I here? Why did I choose to be here? Why did I choose to become a monk? There's a reason for it. And so reminding myself of that calling is what kind of puts me back on track. For those of you that are not monks or nuns, which is everybody, ask yourself, why are you here? What are you studying Buddhism for? What do you practice meditation for? What is the reason? Are you doing it just to do it? Then you will fail. If you don't do anything, emphasize doing, meaning if you do not study, and you do not apply practice to that study, you are wasting your time. If If you practice without studying, you're wasting your time. Alex runs a one-on-one Buddhism class. I'm assuming he studies, because if he didn't, then he has no right to teach that class. He'd be doing a disservice to you. Because all he does is read and come back and reiterate what he read, he's useless too. If I were just to read something and reiterate it to you, I'm also useless. One of my own rules is that I do not teach something that I do not fully understand, or comprehend, or attain. Hopefully that is the same for everyone else. 3 minutes. Okay. Point is, read, study, and practice. If you want to be happy, do something about it. Want to get rid of your suffering? Do something about it. What are you doing to alleviate your suffering? What are you doing? Are you just waiting for something to happen? Are you waiting for the world to end? Sometimes I am, because I'm like, let's just do a reset. The world needs to do a quick reset. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it if it ended. Okay, maybe not. It's a beautiful world. There's a lot of chaos in it, unfortunately, but it's important to see the beauty beyond that chaos. And there is beauty in everything. Okay, I'm going to stop there. What questions do you have? Concerns? Emotional outbursts? Yes, Mr. Vinny. I can't answer that for you. Ask yourself, who are you? Who are you now? Who were you before you were you now? Who will you be after you are now? Right? It's the big question in Buddhism. The answer is that you are a Buddha. You're a Buddha. A future Buddha. You may not be one now, but we are all destined to be Buddhas eventually. Yes, ma'am.
So, you were speaking on, why are you here and what was the purpose? And, you mentioned, people come and go, and I think that's pretty much across almost all religions. Mm-hmm. But the thought came to me is there are different levels of right. Is it what you want to use in practice for? Or, I don't think everyone is seeking to, I think ultimately everyone is seeking to be enlightened, but not necessarily. There are people that are just wanting to, get along better with their husbands, not getting ready to with the road. So are those acceptable ways? I don't know if that's the best word. Are those acceptable ways of practicing Buddhism, or is everything have to be geared towards being completely enlightened? Because we do have a lot of lifetimes.
Right.
And it's a serious question.
In any religion, literally in any religion, good religion, all religion, in any religion, what is the point of any of them? Just to go to heaven, right? Take out the heavenly, godly piece of any religion, and the answer is everyone wants to be happy, right? That is our goal in life. That's why we get jobs, so we can support ourselves and do the things that we want to do, buy the houses that we want to buy, and drive the cars that we want to drive, go to the vacations that we want to go to, right? All these things are what we believe will make us happy. And to an extent they will, for a very short amount of time. Right? You buy a new house, it's like, oh yeah, it's a new house, it's decorated, you do what you want to do with it, but after a while it just becomes a place you sleep and eat. Your fancy car is like, ooh, I can go fast. Every once in a while, it's just a vehicle that takes you from point A to point B. You get excited about your vacation, you go, you do your thing, you're tired, you come back. That was fun. Cool. Okay, now I gotta go back to work. So where's this happiness now that you had on this vacation? Where's the happiness you had from buying that new car? Where's the happiness from getting that new house? If any of those things bring happiness and take happiness away, then it was not real happiness. True happiness is constant. True happiness does not come from materialistic things. Happiness is not in possessive materials. Happiness in Buddhist concept is in the mind. You bring and make your own happiness. You bring and sever your suffering. I can't take away your suffering, nor can I give you happiness. I can give you the guides and the lists that will. But even with the list, it's going to be your job to do something with it. Right? You're one of my students. You've taken the Refutation 5 precepts. If I gave you the 5 precepts and I told you, hey, this is the guide that the Buddha told us to live by so that we can become good, moral, happy people. But you're going to have to do something about it. You're the one that has to apply those rules, those guidelines, in order to be happy, to end your suffering. So if you come to Buddhism, and again, people come for different reasons, but take out the enlightenment piece of it, everyone's answer is going to be, I just want to be happy. I want to be at peace. All right? How do you attain that? By following this list. It's simple. Do good, do not do bad, tame your mind. That is the motto of Buddhism. Do good, do not do bad, and tame your mind. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. I get it. That is going to be up to you. Is it the only way? No. Is it a good way that will help you? Yes. Is it attainable? For most people, no. Right? That's why people become monks and nuns, to get away from all that. That's why it's easiest for monks and nuns to become enlightened, because they are out of that cycle of worldly concerns, right? We have the time, we have the place, we have the space in order to fully immerse ourselves in the practice, versus those that don't have that capability, right? It's not impossible for you, it's just more difficult. But at the same time, you also have control of what you do in life, who you hang out with, where you go, how you act, how you talk, how you speak. All this is in your own control. And so you have the control whether you want to be in that kind of environment and around that same energy or not. Right? People who grew up in bad neighborhoods, for instance, right? Or they join gangs or whatnot. They do that because they're in a place where that may be the only option for them. Otherwise, they get killed themselves, right? Don't want to get killed, or don't want to be with people who are terrible people, but at least they'll keep me safe, right? And that's part of the toxicity of environments like that, or even in relationships, right? People stick with toxic relationships because it's convenient, it's familiar, it's comfortable for them, right? They may be getting abused and humiliated and degraded, but that's their kind of psychological comfort. Or you can ask Alex, he's the actual psychologist here, but right. Right. Yeah. It's very much environmental. But the good thing about that, though, is because we have free will, for the most part, you have the ability to say, no, this is not what I want to do. I'm going to do this instead. Right? There's a story that a teacher gave one time about someone, I don't know if it was in San Antonio or somewhere, but it was a man who grew up in a bad neighborhood, right, who ended up being in gangs because that's what was there. But then they made the conscious decision to say, no, this is not what I want to live my life at. And they left and joined the military. And now they're like a 2-star general, right? And so the means to have a better life is always there. You just have to make the decision to do it. You have to put in the effort. So the same thing with the practice. If you want to be happy, do something about it. Right? Okay, stop talking. Did that answer your question, though, at least? Okay, yes, Alex. We unfortunately live in a society of, I want things now. 2-day shipping is not fast enough. Overnight shipping is not fast enough. Right? No, I want it right here and now. Have you ever seen, it's probably in a whole bunch of sci-fi movies, what do they call it? The synthesizer that like literally makes anything you want, right? A little kind of 3D print. I want one of those. Right? We all want one of those. I want a burger and just magically burger pies. Seriously? Where's it coming from?
It was right now, so it was within 2 hours.
Interesting. Okay, we are past time. If there are any questions, you can feel free to ask any one of us after the service. But for now, we will transfer the merit and then go to chanting. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. For any positive karmic action we've accumulated here today, we wish to transfer the merit to all sentient beings and wish them full alignment.
You go to the general service. Inviting the bell. Buddhist
speech and mind in perfect oneness, I send my heart along with the sound of the bell. May the hearer awaken from forgetfulness and transcend all anxiety and sorrow. Listen, listen, this wonderful sound brings me back to my true home.
Incense offering. In
gratitude we offer this incense to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas throughout space and time. May it be fragrant as earth herself, reflecting careful efforts, our wholehearted mindfulness, and the fruit of understanding slowly ripening. May we and all beings be companions of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May we awaken from forgetfulness and realize our true home.
Opening verse. The
incense in the censer now is burning. All the Dharma realm in every auspicious clouds appearing. Our sincere intention thus fulfilling, as all Buddhas now show their perfect body. Homage to the incense cloud canopy. Bodhisattva and great Bodhisattvas.
Verses for bowing. We bow together. Homage
to the eternally abiding Buddhas, the supreme Dharma and sagely sung throughout the Dharma realm and the realm of empty space, and 3 periods of
homage to the
fundamental teacher Shakyamuni Buddha, Maitreya, honor future Buddha, Manjushri, great wisdom, Bodhisattva, universal great conduct, Bodhisattva, all Dharma guarding Deva Bodhisattva, and the glorious mountain assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas.
Homage to
Amitabha Buddha in the land of ultimate bliss, Avalokiteshvara, great compassion, Bodhisattva, great strength, Bodhisattva, restored great vow, Bodhisattva, and the assembly of great pure Shilang Bodhisattva.
Please sit down. The great compassion mantra, Namo.
Great compassionate Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, Namo. Great compassionate Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, Namo. Great compassionate Buddhas and Bodhisattvas.
Namo Ratnatayaya, Namo Harya Parokite Savaraya,
Bodhisattvaya Mahasattvaya,
Mahakarunikaya, Om
Sarvaravaye Sodhanadasya, Namaskritva Himamarya, Parokiteshvararam Dava, Namo Narakendi, Hrimahavat Swami, Sarvaharhatu Shubham, Ajiyam, Sarva Sattva, Namo Vastava, Namo Vakamavitatu, Tadyata, Om Havaloke Lokate, Karate, Hiri, Mahabodhisattva, Sarva Sarva, Manamala, Mahi Mahi Hridayam, Koro Koro Karmam, Doro Doro Vijate, Mahavijate, Dara Dara, Dirini Shvaraya, Chala Chala, Mama Vimala, Mokta Lehi Ehi, Shina Shina, Ashari Vishva Vishvam Prashaya Holo Holo Mara Holo Holo He Sara Sara Siri Siri Soro Soro Bodhaya 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 Maitreya Narakindi Rishanina Vayamana Swaha Siddhaya Swaha Mahasiddhaya Swaha Siddhayogi Shvaraya Swaha Narakindi Swaha Maranara Swaha Sira Simha Mokaya Swaha Sarva Mahasiddhaya Swaha Chakra Siddhaya Swaha Padma Divagaraya Swaha Mavari Sankaraya Swaha Namo Ratna Trayaya Namo Harya Valokite Swaha Om Siryanto Mantra Padaya Swaha.
The Dhammapada
Body is bringing morning light in concentration. My heart is a half smile is born on my lips. This is a new day and I vow to grow through in mindfulness. The sun of wisdom has risen, shining in every direction. Noble Sangha, diligently bring your mind into meditation. Namo Shakyamonaye Bodhaya Namo Shakyamonaye Bodhaya Namo Shakyamonaye Bodhaya.
She's for opening a sutra. The
Surpass profound and wonderful Dharma is difficult to encounter in hundreds of millions of eons. I now see and hear, receive and uphold it, and I vow to fathom the Tathagata's true meaning. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha.
touching the earth, the one
Bows and the one who is bowed to are both by nature empty. Therefore the communication between them is inexpressibly perfect. Our practice center is the net of Indra, reflecting all Buddhas everywhere, as my own person reflects in all Buddha, to whom with my whole life I go for refuge.
offering light in the
10
directions.
directions, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, to whom we bow in gratitude.
Teaching and
Living the way of awareness in the very midst of suffering and confusion. Shakyamuni Buddha, the awakened one, to whom we bow in gratitude.
getting through ignorance,
awakening our hearts and our minds, Manjushri the Bodhisattva of great understanding, to whom we bow in gratitude.
Working mindfully,
Working joyfully for the sake of all beings, Samantabhadra the Bodhisattva of great action, to whom we bow in gratitude.
responding
To suffering, serving beings in countless ways, Avalokiteshvara the Bodhisattva of great compassion, to whom we bow in gratitude.
seed of
Awakening and loving kindness in children, sprouts, and all beings, Maitreya the Buddha to be born, to whom we bow in gratitude.
showing
The way fearlessly and compassionately, the stream of all our ancestral teachers, to whom we bow in gratitude.
the Dhamma
Is deep and lovely, we now have a chance to see it and practice it. We vow to realize its true meaning.
the Pranaparamita, the Bodhisattva
Avalokita, while moving in the deep course of Prajna Paramita, shed light on the 5 skandhas and found them equally empty. After this penetration, he overcame ill-being. Listen, Shariputra, form is empty. Emptiness is form. Form is not other than emptiness. Empty is not other than form. The same is true with feelings, perception, mental formations, and conscious. Listen, Shariputra, all dharmas are marked with emptiness. They are neither produce nor dish, neither defiled nor immaculate, neither increasing nor decreasing. Therefore, in emptying, there is neither form nor feelings, no perception nor mental formation, nor conscious, no eye or ear or nose or tongue or body or mind, no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no object of, no realms of elements, no interdependent origins, and no extinction of them, no ill-being, no cause of ill-being, no end of ill-being, and no path, no understanding, no attainment, because there is no attainment. The Bodhisattva's ground in Prajna Paramita find no obstacles, for their having no obstacles, they overcome fear, liberating themselves forever from illusion and realizing perfect Nirvana. All Buddhas in the past, present, and future arrive at Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Therefore, one should know that perfect understanding is the highest mantra, the unequaled mantra, the destroyer of ill-being, the incorruptible truth, amancha prajna paramita should therefore gate gate para samgate bodhi swaha gate gate para samgate bodhi swaha gate para samgate bodhi swaha.
Invoking the Bodhisattva's name, we
invoke your name, Avalokiteshvara. We aspire to learn your way of listening with all our suffering in the world. You know how to, in order to stand. Practice listening with all our attention and open-heartedness. We will sit and listen without any prejudice. We will sit and listen without judging or reacting. We will sit and listen in order to understand. We will sit and listen so attentively that we will be able to hear what the other person is saying and also what is being left unsaid. We know that just by listening deeply we already alleviate a great deal of pain and suffering in the other person.
We invoke your name,
Manjushri. We aspire to learn your way. Be still and to look deeply into the heart things and into the hearts of people. We look with all our attention and open-heartedness. We will unprejudiced eyes. We will judging or reacting. We will look deeply so that we will be able to see and understand the roots of suffering through the impermanent and selfless nature of all that is. We will your way of using the sword of understanding to cut through the bonds of suffering, thus freeing ourselves and other species.
We invoke
your name, Samanta Bhadra. We aspire to practice your with the eyes and heart of compassion to bring joy to one person in the morning and to ease the pain of we know that just happiness of others is our own happiness, and we aspire to practice joy on the path of service. We know that every look, and every smile can bring happiness to others. We practice wholeheartedly, we ourselves may become an inexhaustible source of peace and joy for our loved ones and for all species.
We invoke
your name, Chitigarbha. We aspire to learn your way, which present where there is darkness, suffering, oppression, and despair, so
we can light
hope, relief, and to those places we are determined not to forget or abandon those in despair. We will do our best to establish contact with those who cannot find a way out of their suffering, those whose cries for help, justice, equality, and human rights are not being. We know that hell can be found in many places on earth. We will do our best not to contribute to create more hells on earth and to help transform the hells that already exist. We will practice in order to realize the qualities of perseverance and stability, so that like the earth we can always be supportive and faithful to those in need.
We bow together, the three refuges. I take
Refuge in the Buddha, the one
who showed
me the way in this life. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and of love. I take
refuge
in the Sangha, the community that lives in harmony and awareness.
Dwelling
In the refuge of Buddha, I clearly see the path of light and beauty in the world. Dwelling in the refuge of Dharma, I learn to open many doors on the path of transformation. Dwelling in the refuge of Sangha, shining light that supports me, keeping my practice free of obstruction.
taking
refuge in the Buddha. In myself I aspire to help all people recognize their own awakened nature, realizing the mind of love, taking refuge in the Dharma. In myself I aspire to help all people fully master the ways of practice and walk together on the path of liberation, taking refuge in the Sangha. In myself I aspire to help all people build fourfold community, to embrace all beings and support their transformation.
intermarried, reciting the sutras, practicing the way, awareness gives rise to benefits without limits. We vow to share the fruits with all beings.